Ladies and gentlemen, friends and believers, thank you for this moment together. Today we gather not just to talk about our journeys, but to remind ourselves of something crucial. We begin with God. In the midst of our lives, with all its ups and downs, there is one constant, one foundation we must always return to, and that is Him. So let me ask you to reflect for a moment. Where does your strength come from? What fuels your resilience? For many of us, the answer lies in the one who made us, the one who sees us beyond our mistakes and shortcomings. God is not just the beginning of our lives. He is the center and the fuel that drives us forward. We begin with God, and with God, we find our true strength. Embracing vulnerability is one of the most powerful things we can do in our journey of faith. So often we're told to hide our weaknesses, to keep our struggles to ourselves, and to present a polished version of ourselves to the world. But God calls us to do something different. He calls us to embrace vulnerability not as a sign of weakness, but as a pathway to true strength. It's in those moments when we let go of our pride and admit that we cannot do it alone, that God steps in and begins to work through us in ways we never imagined. Vulnerability means being honest with ourselves and with God about where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. It's not always easy to admit that we are struggling, that we're facing doubts, or that we feel broken. But when we embrace vulnerability, we open ourselves to the possibility of healing. By acknowledging our need for God, we make room for His presence in our lives. In fact, it's often in our weakest moments that we experience His greatest strength. When we choose to be vulnerable, we stop pretending to have it all together. We stop trying to control every aspect of our lives and surrender to the truth that God is the one in control. Vulnerability is not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being open to God's guidance, trusting that He knows what's best for us, and being willing to walk in faith even when the path is uncertain. It requires humility to admit that we need help, that we don't have all the answers, and that we cannot walk this life alone. But in doing so, we invite God to be our guide, our strength, and our support. In embracing vulnerability, we also learn to embrace our humanity. God made us in His image, but He also made us imperfect, with all the challenges and struggles that come with being human. We are not meant to be invincible. We are meant to rely on Him, to lean on His strength when ours runs out. It's easy to get caught up in the desire to appear strong, to hide our weaknesses, and to show only the parts of ourselves we want others to see. But when we do that, we miss out on the power that comes from surrender. It's in our moments of vulnerability that we discover the true depth of God's love and grace. Consider the countless stories in the Bible of individuals who embraced vulnerability in the face of their challenges. From Moses, who stuttered and felt inadequate to lead, to David, who poured out his heart in Psalms, acknowledging his failures and fears, these men did not try to hide their vulnerabilities. Instead, they brought them before God, and in doing so, they found strength and courage to carry out His will. Vulnerability wasn't a barrier to their success. It was the very thing that allowed them to experience God's transformative power. By embracing vulnerability, we also become more connected to others. When we share our struggles, our fears, and our weaknesses, we allow others to see our humanity. This is where true connection happens, not in perfection, but in authenticity. We all face battles that others may not see, but when we open up about our struggles, we create a space for others to do the same. In vulnerability, we find solidarity and community, and it's through this shared experience that we can encourage and support one another. Embracing vulnerability isn't about exposing our flaws for the sake of it. It's about recognizing that it's through our weaknesses that God's power is made perfect. When we are vulnerable, we make room for His strength to shine. We no longer rely on our own abilities or try to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. Instead, we trust that God is with us in every moment, that His grace is sufficient. and that His love will carry us through whatever challenges we face. Owning your story is one of the most liberating and empowering things you can do. Too often we let our past define us in negative ways, allowing the mistakes, regrets, and pain we've experienced to shape how we see ourselves. We hold on to narratives that keep us stuck, thinking that we are defined by our failures or the circumstances beyond our control. But owning your story means embracing every part of your journey, good, bad, and everything in between, and understanding that your life is yours to shape, regardless of what's happened before. It's about realizing that you are not defined by your past, but by how you move forward from it, with God's grace as your guide. Owning your story means taking full responsibility for your life and the choices you make. It's about recognizing that no matter where you come from or what you've been through, you have the power to decide how to move forward. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You may have faced hardship, betrayal, loss, or disappointment, but those things do not have to dictate your future. By owning your story, you acknowledge that you are in control of how you respond to the challenges you face. You are not a prisoner to your past. You are a free person in Christ, capable of living a life of purpose and meaning. This doesn't mean ignoring the pain or pretending that everything is perfect. Owning your story is not about denying the difficulties you've experienced or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about being honest with yourself about who you are, where you've been, and where you want to go. It's about giving yourself permission to heal and grow, to move beyond the things that once held you back, and to start creating a future that reflects who you truly are, not who others say you should be. Part of owning your story is accepting that you are a work in progress. We all have areas where we fall short, places where we wish we could have done things differently. But when we own our story, we stop living in regret and start living in possibility. We recognize that every chapter, even the painful ones, has shaped us and brought us to where we are today. Your struggles, your mistakes, and your failures are not the end of your story. They are simply a part of your journey. When you own your story, you stop letting the past define your future. Instead, you let it fuel your growth, knowing that every setback is simply an opportunity for a comeback. You also give yourself the freedom to dream. So often we limit ourselves by the stories we tell ourselves about what we're capable of. We think we're not good enough or that we don't have what it takes to achieve our dreams. But when we take ownership of our story, we stop making excuses and start making plans. We stop believing the lies that tell us we're too broken, too flawed, or too far gone to accomplish great things. We begin to see ourselves as God sees us, full of potential, worthy of His love, and capable of achieving all that He has called us to. When you own your story, you also recognize the power of your voice. The narrative you've been living doesn't have to be the one you continue telling. You are the author of your own life, and God has given you the power to rewrite the chapters that no longer serve you. By owning your story, you can break free from the limitations and labels that others may have placed on you and start living a life that is true to who you are in Christ. You no longer have to live in the shadows of your past. You can step into the light of your purpose and destiny. Ultimately, owning your story is about embracing your full self, trusting that every part of you is part of God's plan. When you own your story, you stop running from who you are and start embracing all that God has made you to be. The good, the bad, and everything in between, all of it is part of the beautiful tapestry that God is weaving in your life. When you own your story, you give yourself the permission to heal, to grow, and to step boldly into the future that God has planned for you. Practicing courageous faith is a call to live boldly, to step forward even when the path ahead seems uncertain or daunting. It is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward in the face of it, trusting that God is with us every step of the way. Faith is not something that remains passive or dormant. It is something that requires action, something that pushes us to take risks, to trust in the unseen, and to believe in what God has promised, even when everything around us seems to suggest otherwise. Courageous faith is what allows us to face the storms of life with confidence, knowing that God is our anchor and that His promises are true. It takes courage to walk in faith, especially when the world tells us to rely on our own strength and understanding. We live in a society that values self-reliance, independence, and control. We are often taught that the more we can predict and plan, the safer we will be. But God calls us to a different way of living. He calls us to trust in Him, not in our own ability to control every outcome. Courageous faith means surrendering our need to understand everything and instead trusting that God sees the bigger picture, even when we can't. When we step out in faith, we are often walking into the unknown, with no guarantee of success or certainty about what the future holds. But that is the very nature of courageous faith, to trust in God, even when we cannot see the way. It's easy to have faith when everything is going according to plan, when the road is smooth and the outcomes are predictable. But it takes true courage to have faith when things are hard, when we don't know how things will turn out, and when it feels like everything is falling apart. Courageous faith calls us to trust God even in the midst of uncertainty and struggle. The Bible is filled with stories of individuals who displayed courageous faith. From Abraham, who left everything he knew to follow God's call to a land he had never seen, to Esther, who risked her life to stand up for her people, to Peter, who stepped out of the boat to walk on water toward Jesus. These figures remind us that faith is not about knowing exactly how things will unfold. It's about trusting God enough to take that first step. Each of these individuals faced fear, doubt, and the unknown, but they chose to trust God anyway. And in doing so, they experienced His faithfulness in ways that were beyond their imagination. Courageous faith is not just about taking big steps. It's also about trusting God in the everyday moments. It's in the small decisions, the daily choices to believe in His promises and trust His timing. It's about choosing to believe that God is good, even when life doesn't make sense. It's about holding on to His truth, even when the world around us is full of lies and distractions. Courageous faith is the quiet, steady belief that God is who He says He is, and that He will do what He says He will do, no matter what circumstances may arise. As we practice courageous faith, we are not just stepping into our own future, we are stepping into God's plan for our lives. It's a plan that is bigger than we can comprehend, a plan that is filled with hope, purpose, and grace. Courageous faith is what allows us to overcome obstacles, to move past fear, and to live out the purpose God has set before us. It's the kind of faith that transforms not only our circumstances, but also our hearts, making us more like Christ and drawing us closer to the one who calls us to trust Him fully, no matter what. Cultivating connection is about more than just forming relationships. It's about creating deep, meaningful bonds that reflect God's love and grace. In a world where we can easily feel isolated, disconnected, or misunderstood, it's essential to remember that God created us for community. He designed us to be in relationship with others, not just for companionship, but for mutual support, encouragement, and growth. To cultivate connection is to intentionally invest in others and in ourselves, building bridges that allow us to share, listen, and walk alongside one another in both joy and sorrow. When we cultivate connection, we acknowledge that we are not meant to go through life alone. It's easy to fall into the trap of self-reliance, to think we can manage on our own, to put on a brave face and hide our struggles. But true connection begins when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, when we open our hearts to others and let them see us as we truly are flawed, imperfect, and in need of grace. It's in those moments of honesty and openness that relationships are deepened. We stop pretending to have it all together, and instead, we create space for others to do the same. By embracing vulnerability in our connections, we allow God's love to flow through us, creating an environment of acceptance and healing. At the heart of cultivating connection is active listening. It's not just about hearing what others say, it's about truly understanding them. It's about giving people the time and space to express themselves without judgment or interruption, and offering empathy and compassion in return. In today's fast-paced world, we often find ourselves distracted, not fully present in conversations, and unable to give others the attention they need. But when we listen attentively, when we take the time to be fully present with someone, we show them they are valued and important. Listening with intention is one of the greatest ways to foster connection. It's through this listening that we can offer the love and support that others need, allowing them to feel seen and heard, especially in their moments of struggle. Cultivating connection also means extending grace, forgiveness, and understanding. Relationships, whether they are family, friends, or colleagues, are bound to face challenges. We will hurt one another, misunderstand each other, and let each other down. But God calls us to forgive, to seek reconciliation, and to extend grace as He has extended it to us. Cultivating connection means choosing to repair relationships when they are broken, to reach out when we feel distant, and to show love even when it's difficult. This doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior or excusing wrong actions, but it does mean creating a space where healing can take place, where both parties can be open to the possibility of restoration. Forgiveness allows relationships to grow and evolve, creating a foundation where true connection can thrive. God's design for connection is not just about being surrounded by people, but about building relationships that are rooted in His love. As we connect with others, we are called to reflect Christ's love, kindness, and compassion. This doesn't mean that every connection will be easy or that all relationships will be perfect. But when we cultivate connections grounded in faith, we begin to see others not through our own eyes, but through God's. We start to understand that every person we meet is a child of God, deserving of love, respect, and dignity. Cultivating connection also has the power to heal. When we share our burdens with others, when we allow them to share theirs with us, we experience God's presence in profound ways. We remind each other of the hope we have in Christ, of the strength that comes from community, and of the truth that we are never alone. It is through these connections that we learn, grow, and become more like the people God created us to be. Cultivating connection is about building relationships that are not just surface level, but are deeply rooted in love, trust, and mutual support. It's about creating a community where we can be vulnerable, honest, and true to ourselves, knowing that we are accepted, valued, and loved by God. In a world that often feels disconnected, we are called to be the hands and feet of Christ, to reach out, to listen, and to love, because it is through connection that we truly experience the fullness of life that God intended for us. Finding strength in imperfection is about recognizing that our flaws, mistakes, and struggles don't define us as failures, but rather as human beings in the process of growth and transformation. In a world that often values perfection, it's easy to feel like we fall short, like we need to meet a certain standard or live up to the expectations placed upon us. However, it is in embracing our imperfections that we discover true strength that doesn't come from being flawless, but from being authentic and resilient in the face of our challenges. We are all imperfect. We make mistakes, we have shortcomings, and we carry burdens that sometimes feel too heavy to bear. Yet, rather than seeing these imperfections as weaknesses, we can view them as opportunities for growth and dependence on God's grace. Strength doesn't come from pretending to be perfect or from hiding our struggles. It comes from acknowledging who we truly are, embracing our flaws, and allowing God to work in us and through us. Our imperfections are the very places where God's grace shines the brightest, where His power is made perfect in our weakness. When we allow ourselves to find strength in imperfection, we stop striving for a false ideal and begin to accept ourselves as we are, knowing that God sees us with love and compassion, not condemnation. This acceptance doesn't mean settling for mediocrity or neglecting personal growth. It means recognizing that we don't have to be perfect to be valuable. We don't have to meet the world's standards to be worthy of love and purpose. In fact, it is often our imperfections that make us more relatable, more human, and more able to connect with others in meaningful ways. Imperfection also brings with it the opportunity for vulnerability. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to show others our flaws and weaknesses, we open the door to deeper connections and greater healing. In vulnerability, we find strength because it allows us to be real. We stop hiding behind masks or putting on facades, and instead, we live authentically. In doing so, we invite others into our journey, and we create a space where they can also be open about their own struggles. This shared experience of imperfection builds community and fosters an environment where grace and support can flourish. Finding strength in imperfection teaches us humility. It reminds us that we are not in control of everything and that we don't have to be perfect to achieve great things. Humility allows us to lean into God's strength, to trust that He is at work in us, even when we don't have all the answers, and to surrender our need for perfection in favor of trusting His plan. It's in those moments of imperfection that we realize that God's grace is sufficient for us, that His love covers all of our shortcomings, and that His power is made perfect when we admit our need for Him. Our imperfections are also the very things that shape us into the people God created us to be. Through our struggles, we gain wisdom, resilience, and empathy. We learn patience, compassion, and perseverance. Every flaw or failure is a stepping stone that moves us closer to becoming the person God has destined for us to be. And as we embrace our imperfections, we learn to appreciate the beauty in our journey, understanding that we are not meant to be perfect, but to be transformed. Finding strength in imperfection is about embracing who we are, flaws and all, and trusting that God is at work in every part of our lives. It's about realizing that we don't have to be flawless to be whole. Our imperfections don't make us weak. They make us real, they make us human, and they make us dependent on the grace and strength of God. In accepting our imperfections, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of God's love, His mercy, and His power. And it is in this place of vulnerability and authenticity that we find the strength to keep moving forward, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. Leading with integrity means making decisions and taking actions that align with truth, honesty, and moral principles, regardless of the situation or external pressures. It is a commitment to doing what is right, even when no one is watching. Integrity is the foundation of trust. And as a leader, it is essential to build trust with those you led. Without integrity, leadership becomes hollow. It loses its impact and the ability to inspire others. Integrity ensures that your actions reflect your values, and it sets the tone for those around you, showing them the importance of staying true to their beliefs and maintaining ethical standards in all they do. When you lead with integrity, you stand firm in your principles and hold yourself accountable for your actions. This means being consistent in your words and deeds, aligning your behavior with your core values, even in difficult circumstances. It is easy to be tempted to compromise in the face of challenges or when pursuing personal gain. But true leaders choose to remain steadfast in their commitment to what is right. Integrity requires courage to speak the truth, to act ethically, and to admit mistakes when they happen. It is not about being perfect, but about being honest and willing to learn and grow. Leaders with integrity are willing to take responsibility for their actions and the consequences that follow, demonstrating humility and transparency. One of the most significant aspects of leading with integrity is leading by example. People are more likely to follow your actions than your words, so when you consistently demonstrate honesty, fairness, and accountability, you inspire those around you to do the same. Integrity is not something that can be demanded. It must be shown through your everyday behavior. By acting with integrity, you create a culture of respect, trust, and fairness where others feel confident in their ability to speak openly, to make decisions, and to act in line with their own values. Leading with integrity means prioritizing the well-being of others over personal gain. It is about making decisions that are just and fair, even when they may not be the most convenient or advantageous for you. Integrity requires you to make choices that reflect your commitment to ethical behavior, even when they involve sacrifices or difficult trade-offs. Leaders who act with integrity ensure that the needs of their team, organization, or community come first, and that decisions are made with a sense of responsibility and consideration for all involved. In a world where shortcuts and dishonesty can seem tempting or even commonplace, leading with integrity sets you apart. It fosters loyalty and respect from others because people want to follow those who consistently do what is right, regardless of the challenges they face. Integrity does not promise an easy road or quick success, but it ensures that the path you walk is one that builds lasting relationships, strengthens communities, and leaves a legacy of trust and respect. Leadership with integrity also creates a ripple effect. When people see their leaders acting with integrity, they are encouraged to do the same in their own lives. Integrity breeds a sense of accountability and responsibility that extends beyond one person, creating an environment where everyone is encouraged to uphold ethical standards. It instills a sense of pride in the organization or group and helps to foster a culture of mutual respect and moral clarity. Leading with integrity is about choosing what is right over what is easy, about making decisions that reflect the values you want to see in the world. It's a continuous journey that requires self-awareness, discipline, and a commitment to personal growth. But when you lead with integrity, you not only build trust and respect in those you lead, but also find satisfaction in knowing that you are living in alignment with your true values and contributing to something greater than yourself. Integrity may not always be the easiest choice, but it is always the right one. And it's through integrity that true, lasting leadership is formed. Celebrating the power of renewal is recognizing the profound truth that every day offers an opportunity for fresh starts, new beginnings, and personal transformation. Life is full of seasons, and with each season comes change. There are times of growth and times of difficulty, times of abundance and times of scarcity. However, no matter the circumstances, the power of renewal is always available to us, reminding us that no situation is permanent and no mistake is beyond redemption. Renewal is the chance to reset, to rediscover purpose, and to embrace the possibility of becoming who we were always meant to be. Renewal begins within, and it often starts with a shift in perspective. It's easy to become discouraged by past mistakes or to feel trapped by the circumstances of our lives. We may believe that we are stuck in a rut or that our best days are behind us. But the power of renewal invites us to reframe our thinking, to let go of old narratives, and to believe that change is possible. In Christ, we are promised that the old has gone and the new has come. This promise is not just about spiritual renewal, but also about emotional, mental, and even physical renewal. It is a reminder that each day is an opportunity to begin again, to shed the burdens of the past, and to step into the fullness of what God has planned for us. Embracing renewal requires courage. It takes courage to face the areas of our lives that need healing, to confront the habits that are holding us back, and to release the things that no longer serve us. Renewal isn't always comfortable. It often requires us to step outside of our comfort zones, to let go of what we thought we knew, and to open ourselves up to new possibilities. But it is in this process of transformation that we find true freedom. We find that the things we thought were limitations were actually stepping stones to a deeper, more meaningful life. Renewal doesn't mean erasing our past, but rather allowing our past to shape us in a way that propels us forward with greater wisdom, resilience, and faith. The power of renewal also lies in the ability to forgive ourselves and others. Often we carry the weight of past mistakes, hurts, or regrets, and this can keep us from moving forward. But when we embrace the power of renewal, we make space for healing. We allow ourselves to release the bitterness, anger, or guilt that has held us captive, and we choose to walk in the freedom of forgiveness. Just as God has forgiven us, we are called to forgive others. And in doing so, we experience the healing power that renewal brings. Renewal is also a communal experience. While personal transformation is essential, renewal often happens most powerfully when we are in community with others. We were not created to walk this journey alone. In sharing our experiences, our struggles, and our triumphs, we inspire each other to keep moving forward, to keep believing in the possibility of change. Through mutual support, encouragement, and prayer, we are reminded that we are never alone in our desire for renewal. Others walk beside us, helping us through moments of doubt and celebrating with us in moments of triumph. One of the most beautiful aspects of renewal is that it is ongoing. It is not a one-time event, but a continual process of growth, learning, and transformation. Each day brings new opportunities for renewal. Whether through prayer, reflection, or simply taking time to rest and recharge, we can tap into the power of renewal at any moment. God's mercies are new every morning, and each new day is a reminder that we are constantly being renewed, refined, and made into the person we are meant to be. Celebrating the power of renewal means embracing the fact that we are never beyond hope. It means believing that no matter where we find ourselves, no matter what we've done or what has been done to us, there is always a chance for a fresh start. The power of renewal is not just about recovering from hardship or overcoming adversity, but about realizing that we have the capacity to grow, change, and transform in ways that align with the greater purpose God has for our lives. It is a celebration of the beauty of becoming, of letting go of the past and stepping into the future with a heart full of faith, hope, and expectancy. Renewal is not just a process, it is a gift, and it is available to all who are willing to receive it. We begin with God. This is not just a statement of faith, it's a call to action. When we start with God, we lay the foundation for everything else in our lives. Embrace your vulnerability, own your story, lead with integrity, and always find strength in God's love. He is with you in every moment, and through Him, all things are possible. Let us not forget, with God we begin again and again and again, and each time we rise stronger,